Oh, okay. So another another theme that I wanted to visit is that Darwin said, what do you guys think Darwin said? What is the infamous quote that is often mistakenly attributed to Darwin, but he actually never said it that way? Survival of the fittest, right? Why did I slur that? Let me say that again clearly. Survival of the fittest, which most people misinterpret to mean that you have to be at the top of your game. You have to be the apex predator. You have to be the top, the number one person in your field or in your school, whatever, in order to survive. When in fact, that's not what Darwin discovered at all. Darwin never even said survival of the fittest. Somebody else coined that term. Do you want to know who coined the term survival of the fittest? Herbert Spencer is the person who coined the phrase survival of the fittest, and he used it to basically sum up Darwin's findings about how, all living organisms have to compete to survive and reproduce in nature, and only the ones that are able to do it can survive and have their genes passed on. But this is such a misleading statement because survival of the fittest implies that you have to be the apex predator at the top in order to survive, when that is not the case at all. It should be survival of the good enough, like survival of the just barely making it. Not that that's the ideal state that you want to stay in. There's a lot of people in the world that are living on the poverty line in third world countries. They're barely making it day by day. I'm not saying that we want those people to stay in that situation. No, we should always, this is why it's so important for societies to create opportunities for upward mobility, upward social mobility, and economic mobility for its citizens. But the point being, though, is that even with people living on the poverty line, living hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck, they're still living, though. They're still grinding along. That speaks to survival of the good enough, not survival of the fittest. As long as you are meeting the criteria, the bare minimum criteria necessary to survive on this planet, you're still in the game. I'm a small content creator myself. I stopped making psychic videos because of my Christian religious beliefs. Oh yeah, I think I met you on did I meet you on a Shira 7 live stream back in the day? This is so nostalgic. This is so interesting because Shira 7 is, there's a whole discussion about her now because of the trophy wife situation that happened lately, which I don't really understand. I mean, I do understand why people have been waiting for this opportunity to drag Shira into some mess. That is why her name is being mixed in with this drama. But in reality, I mean, we all know that this is not Shira's fault, obviously. Thank you for checking in on me again. But no, Darwin said good enough. You guys, let me pull up the exact quote. It's not survival of the fittest. That was Herbert Spencer. This is what Darwin said, which is much more, closer to the actual truth. It is not the most intellectual of the species that survives. It is not the strongest that survives, but the species that is able to best adapt and adjust to the changing environment in which it finds itself. That is what Darwin says. So as long as you are good enough, as long as you are able to adapt to the environment and to the changing times, you will win, okay? You will survive this ish. I can't believe that there's so many people out there now still misinterpreting this finding by Darwin to mean that they have to be the best or they're not doing enough. Okay, upon doing a little more research, I came across an explanation that kind of explains pretty well why people tend to misinterpret this quote. So I'll just read it for you. It says that even though we tend to commonly use this phrase up to the individual level, such evolutionary processes usually play out their roles that are observable and significant at the species level, and even the effect of this selection of the fittest is reflected at the species level. So this means that when evolutionary biologists or scientists, even maybe Darwin and Spencer themselves, when they use the phrase survival of the fittest, they are referring to the fittest species as a whole, not the fittest individual in a certain species, if that makes sense. So that means that your species as a whole, in our case, the human race, we do have to be at the top of our game. If not the apex predator, then at least, we have to be the best in our field, so to speak, but you can still be the weakest link of the top predator apex species and survive. This is the whole reason why people have imposter syndrome, is because they bought into this false idea that you have to be the best of the best in order to be considered successful or worth anything. No. Who said? Let's just take a simple example. In school, what was your grading system like? For me, it was the regular like A to F grading system. 90 to 100 on a test is A, 80 to 89 is a B, 70 to 79 is a C, so on and so forth, right? That means in order to get an A, or sometimes like A minus, A plus, depending on the school, in order to get an A, you have to get 90% or above score out of 100 on a test. So if you get a 90, that means you get an A. Just because you didn't get a 95 or 100, that doesn't make your A any less of an A than the next person. If the cutoff is 90 for an A and you just barely make it, like you get an 89.5, but they rounded up to a 90, then you still made it at the end of the day. You're still in the group of A students. And that's on period, right? Do you know there's a fitness influencer out there that doesn't have like feet and is missing a couple of fingers? I don't know if he was born that way, or I think he was born with some condition and they had to amputate a couple of his fingers and his literal feet as a child so that he would be able to survive. And now he is a bona fide full-blown fitness influencer. Like he does all the things that fitness influencers do, like with the, the videos of him doing pull-ups and lifting the weights and all of that. Tosi Fitness, I think. Yeah, Tosi Fitness, this guy. Okay, you can't see. I'll put it in later when I edit, but this guy doesn't have all of his 10 digits, and yet he's a fitness influencer who does fitness influencer things. Like, can you imagine not having most of your fingers and not having feet? He's not missing all of his digits, but he's missing like quite a lot. But he has just enough to be able to hang on to like the bar when you're doing pull-ups and to lift weights and all the things that you need in order to, do gym activities. I'm so sorry. You can tell I've never stepped foot in a gym by the way I'm talking right now, but good enough, right? He has just enough fingers to lift the weights and to pull his body up, and he doesn't have feet, but even without feet, he's able to balance. So who said you need feet? As long as you can balance, then you can work out, which means that you can be a successful fitness influencer and make money doing that on social media. Imagine if he said that, oh, I can't do this because I don't have 10 fingers and 2 feet. Who said that you had to have all your digits and all your feet in order to do fitness things? Nobody said that. You just have to have enough knuckles to be able to hold the bar, the dumbbell. I don't know what it's called. But as long as you have enough to hold the weights and to lift them up and down and to lift your own body up and down as you're doing pull-ups, then it's the difference, right? It doesn't matter if you're a fully able-bodied person with all of your digits or if you're missing a few. If you both clear the minimum requirements of what it takes to just simply work out in a gym, then that means that you can be a fitness influencer, period. Like there's no arguing about, oh, but you're not good enough, like you're not in the top 10%. No, you made the minimum requirements, therefore you are. Like you are enough and therefore you're off to the races, Is it easier if you have all 10 of your fingers and if you have both of your feet? Sure, but that doesn't mean that you can't if you don't have all your digits and you don't happen to have your feet due to an amputation that you had to get as a child in order to prevent a disease from spreading throughout your entire body. There are so many like pop singers out there who are not the best dancers, they're not the best vocalists, and yet they are still wildly successful. Taylor Swift, probably by her own admission, is not the best vocalist by far, but something about her has enough worldwide appeal. And I'm not saying that she's not talented. I mean, I'm not a fan of Taylor Swift, but she definitely has her own version of talent that resonates with a lot of people throughout the world. And so therefore she's one of the biggest pop stars in the world. I think I heard something like when Taylor Swift goes to tour in a smaller city, the entire GDP or like the entire economy of that city is elevated for the weeks leading up to and after her tour, because there's just so much buzz and energy generated around the fact that she is gonna go to that city, do business there essentially, and like attract all the fans and all the crowds. I mean, just her ticket sales alone, right? That jumpstarts the economy of whatever small city that she's going to. big or small. Judas is my favorite single from Lady Gaga. I don't know if you guys know the song. It's like Judah, Judas. Alejandro is a close second. So Judas and Alejandro are my favorite songs from Lady Gaga. There is a character named Alejandro, by the way, in that Brazilian TV series that I'm obsessed with. And I just remember back in college, me and my roommate were laughing our asses off when Judas first came out, when the single was first released, because the cover album art for Judas was created in Microsoft Word. Yeah, you can look it up on the Wikipedia page. Lady Gaga created the Judas album cover art in Microsoft Word. You can't get more basic or simple than that. And yet we're talking about a global superstar, wildly successful record and music video. I'm going to show you. This was the cover art for Lady Gaga's Judas. So this is a prime example of keeping it simple, sis. Like Lady Gaga, she has access to the best graphic designers, the best album cover art artists in the world, and yet this is what she was feeling for the cover for Judas, and so that's what she created. And it's a multi-selling whatever, I don't know how many awards that song in particular won, but Lady Gaga is a multi-platinum selling Grammy-winning artist, is she not? So if Microsoft Word is good enough for her, then it's good enough for the rest of us, no? Like in my case, I apply the same philosophy to my CV, for example. I don't need to have the most visually appealing, fanciest looking CV as long as it's clean and easy to read, concise and to the point. I don't put too many frills on my CV because the fancier ones, unless you are in some sort of like specific industry where you need to demonstrate your graphic design prowess or something like that, most recruiters actually, like most recruiting professionals or job search consultants actually tell you the more simple your resume is, the better. Like the most boring looking CVs are usually the ones that companies gravitate towards and they take more seriously. Because the whole point is that the content of the CV is what matters, not the presentation, right? They want to see that you actually have the necessary experience and skills that are necessary to do the job that they're advertising for. So I've never had a fancy CV and I have been able to get plenty of great opportunities. What else? Kate Moss is only 5'5", which is unheard of for a supermodel. I don't know like the average height of a supermodel, but I would imagine it would be at least 5'8", 5'10". 5'5" is more associated with commercial models, and yet Kate Moss is one of the most famous supermodels in the world. She was good enough. She was not the tallest. She may have not even been the ideal height for a supermodel, but some casting director somewhere decided that, you know what, she's tall enough to walk in this show, to book these gigs. And so she took those opportunities and now look where she is, you know? I'm not the biggest fan of Kate Moss either. I heard that. I don't know. I'm not fazed by celebrities, in case you didn't know. So if I hear that a certain celebrity has a bad attitude or they have a bad reputation, then I judge them just as much as I would judge any regular person that has a bad reputation. Like, I'm not impressed, because at the end of the day, I don't care how famous you are or how many people idolize you. If you're getting paid to do a job, then you should be expected to act professional on your job. It doesn't matter that you're a world famous supermodel with tons of screaming fans. Like, that doesn't give you free reign to act abusively towards people, towards other personnel that are less famous than you, or to show up late. Naomi Campbell, I'm looking at you. So yeah, hopefully whoever needed to hear this message, hopefully this took the pressure off of you a little bit, especially if you tend to be like a perfectionist or if you have imposter syndrome about something. Just remember that it was never about being the fittest or the best or the prettiest, the richest. It's only about being good enough. And let me tell you a secret. If you're alive right now, if you're breathing, like eating, sleeping, breathing, waking up, if you're here, then you've already made it. Everything that matters is already taken care of. Like, you're here, you're living. And if you're watching this video, then you probably have more privilege than a huge segment of the world already, because that means you have access to internet, whether it's on your phone or on a laptop, what have you, even if it's on somebody like a borrowed phone, your friends, or I don't know, a laptop that you borrowed from your community library for free, that's enough. Never forget that, you know? Next time you're in a room with impressive people, like, okay, maybe you got invited as a plus one to a party with a bunch of millionaires or self made entrepreneurs, and if you find yourself starting to revert back to that thought process of, oh my God, do I belong here? I'm so unimpressive compared to these people. No, the fact that you are there already physically in that room means that you belong there, period. Or else you wouldn't be there. Like, it's so simple that it sounds stupid when I say it out loud, but it needs to be said because once you say it out loud, it's almost like that alone breaks the spell, or it breaks whatever like weird concocted imaginary scenario that you had made up in your head, making things more complicated than they actually are. If you are in a room, you belong there, period. It doesn't matter how you got there. Even like Anna Delvey, is that her name? You know, that the fake Russian heiress billionaire. Okay, I'm not saying that you need to or that you should follow her model necessarily. Anna Delvey, yeah. Her real name is Anna Sorokin, and she LARPed as this Russian heiress, essentially. She infiltrated New York high society and was able to convince like all of these high profile people to like invest in her scams and whatnot. Later she got caught, so I don't know if she's in jail right now or if she fled somewhere, but is she in jail? Sorry, I need to know. She was released in February 2021. Okay. So yeah, I'm not saying to con people or be a scam artist, but I'm just saying, even in her case, she believed that she truly deserved to mingle with people in high society, and she truly believed that she was an equal to these people. Therefore, that attitude alone is what got so many people to buy into her scam.
Lie after lie after lie. That's what they told the jury.
Of course they would say something like this. That's their job, to accuse me of crimes.
Because she was so confident and she knew that she belonged wherever she managed to get her foot in.
Did you have celebrity status in jail?
I definitely did, yes.
And then you strike a Netflix deal.
Like, it doesn't even matter the method by which she did it, which in her case was a lot of deceit. But after all that's said and done, though, she was able to access those rooms, and not only that, she actually made real connections with some of the legitimately successful people in those rooms. And so you couldn't tell her nothing, right?
Well, if someone is impressed by $100 bill, I don't know what to tell them.
Unfortunately, she wasn't smart enough to keep her scam going in the end, but while it was happening though, she was good enough. And since she didn't suffer from like insecurities or imposter syndrome or anything, her gall alone carried her that far. So imagine how far you can go as a person who doesn't scam people, as somebody who is just trying your best, you know, making an honest effort. Like, imagine how ludicrous it would be to think that you don't deserve something or you don't belong somewhere just because of some untrue idea that you have in your head about how you're below other people for whatever reason. It's not true. It's all in your head.
Come on, none of it's true. None of it's true. It's BS. They made it up. They lie.
It's all up to you how you interpret your situation. Oh yeah, another thing that I just thought about now is Wicked. I love it when people achieve things at later ages in life. Like, I love how particularly the millennial generation, I have to give credit to my generation. I'm sorry. I mean, there's great examples of this in every generation, but I truly do think that the millennial generation is the spearhead of the refusal to succumb to ageism. Like, millennials truly refuse to age physically, as well as in the sense that we refuse to give up our dreams that we've held ever since we were little children or teenagers. Like, we refuse to give that up. Okay, even if other generations before us, they might say that, okay, it's too late to become a pop star or a rock star once you're past the age of 30. But millennials, we are not trying to hear any of that, and I love us for that. So the Wicked movie comes to mind when I think about this ageism conversation, because Ariana Grande is still relatively young. She's only 32, right? And she also She looks young for her age, so I'm not so much talking about her. Although even Ariana has not escaped any criticism on this front by any means. Like, people have been dragging her left and right for not only her very thin and, I must say, emaciated looking appearance lately, but also for the fact that, you know, she seems to be putting on this new kind of overly coy voice in all of the Wicked interviews and press appearances that we see her in, and people have been criticizing her very heavily for still trying to portray or hold on to a very little girl, childlike image, which on one hand I can kind of see, like, I understand where the criticism is coming from, because I don't know, it's kind of a layered, nuanced thing. It's not just the youth baiting. She's also sort of leaning into this pure, young, white woman innocence trope, which is ironic considering that she plays Glinda, the Good Witch, whose entire image is based on that. Although, is it ironic though, or is it just very fitting? Either way, I feel like, on the other hand, you know, Ariana has always looked very, very young, and we know that the industry and society at large favors and rewards youth in spades, so I don't blame her for trying to ride that until the wheels come off, to be honest with you. I mean, we are talking about her livelihood here, and yeah, if she has the looks to pull it off, I don't see why she shouldn't use her youthful looks to her advantage for as long as possible. If I'm gonna keep it 100% real, I'm also pretty much doing the same thing in my own way, you know, at a lesser scale, not like Hollywood celebrity level, but in my everyday life, I fully take advantage of the fact that I come across very young to people, not only in appearance, but also in my attitude. So yeah, maybe that's another reason why, maybe that's a reason why I feel compelled to defend her a little bit here, but let's move on. Anyway, Cynthia Erivo, I have seen people come out and criticize the fact that she comes across a little too old to be a college student. So if you haven't seen Wicked, or if you don't know the story, it's kind of like it's essentially a fan fiction to The Wizard of Oz, written by Gregory Maguire. Interestingly enough, I read a lot of Gregory Maguire's other fan fictions about other fairy tales aside from Wicked. I never actually read the Wicked series, but I read his works based on other fairy tales, if that makes sense. So, like Cinderella and, I don't know, Snow White, whatever other fairy tales that he released his books on. It's been a while. I read those when I was in high school, but I always avoided Wicked just because I personally don't really care for the Wizard of Oz story. Like, I don't feel a connection to Oz, not in the same way as Hogwarts, for instance, right? Although reluctantly, because Harry Potter has kind of an annoying author, but I can't deny that the story has stuck with me throughout the years. Wizard of Oz, I'm just not attached to, and I don't feel like the characters resonate with me. Even with all of the recent buzz surrounding the new Wicked movie, I just cannot. I can recognize that there was a lot of work put into this, and, you know, it's a huge production and everyone poured their blood, sweat, and tears into it. I can recognize that it's a quality movie, but I just don't feel that emotional connection to the story or the characters. Anyway, with that being said, though, I noticed that a lot of people were criticizing the fact that Cynthia Erivo and some of the other cast members as well look a little bit too old to be playing university students. On the one hand, I kind of, like, I can see where they're coming from. Not so much for Cynthia Erivo, because, to be honest, she is covered in green makeup throughout the whole movie. So that, in a weird way, like, even though it's one of the central conflicts for her character, the fact that she was born green and discriminated against for her whole life, the fact that Cynthia Erivo actually underwent, like, the whole makeup process to turn her skin green. It wasn't CGI. They actually put green foundation on her every single day. I feel like the makeup alone, it masks any wrinkles, or not that she has wrinkles, but the makeup covered whatever perception that you would have of her being older than the character. And so in that sense, I feel like it worked out for Cynthia Erivo's character. But definitely, when it comes to Fiyero, like, that guy definitely did not look in his early 20s like they're all supposed to be. And yet he got cast for the role because he fit the criteria that they were looking for the Fiyero character. And so, again, survival of the good enough, okay? That means he didn't have to be the youngest, the freshest face, the most strapping young lad. Like, that actor, I don't know how old he is. Fiyero is played by Jonathan Bailey, who is how old? 36 years old, playing like a 22-year-old. And look, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean, but with Jonathan Bailey, I really had to suspend my disbelief because you can literally see his wrinkles. Like, he has a more weathered face than some other 36-year-olds out here. He definitely looks his age. And yet, guess what? It doesn't matter what I think or what other moviegoers think, because at the end of the day, he's the one that got the role of Fiyero. He's the one that gets all the glory, as he should, as all of them should, because they put up so much effort and time into making that movie and into their characters. And so, to hell what the public thinks, including myself. At the end of the day, the casting director chose them to play those characters, and that is the final word on it, you know? No matter what the naysayers try to say later, or the critics. Yeah, I love that for millennials. The fact that we just refuse to age. I mean, I think another factor that kind of added to that whole, what's the word, vengeance, not vengeance, but the conviction that we have regarding this aging conversation is that we had 4 years taken away from us due to the pandemic. Like, everything was put on hold for 4 years. So you damn right I'm gonna try to, like, you know, reclaim that time and relive a younger period. I let's see, how old was I? Yeah, I'm 35 now. So I was like 30 to 34, 30 to 33 during the years of the pandemic. Some industries felt it more than others, but even for me, like a regular person, not an actor or anything, I also had a hard time finding jobs in IT. I couldn't find a job in IT during the first 2 major years of the pandemic. So I had to take a completely unrelated job with like a 50% pay cut for those 2 years. It wasn't until the end of 2022 where I was able to finally get another decent, like stable, decent paying IT job. But I can only imagine, I mean, that's for IT where it doesn't really matter how old you are or anything like that. But imagine for if you work in an industry that is largely dependent on, you know, your looks and your age, like acting. I mean, if I was an actor, I would not care if a role called for somebody that was in their early 20s, but I happened to be in my late 30s because I wasn't able to work for all of my mid 30s due to the pandemic lockdown situation. You damn right I'm going to go try out for all those 20-something-year-old roles, and you're gonna pick me because I'm good enough. Okay? I fit the bill of this character, and I wouldn't care if I had, so what if I have a few extra wrinkles on my head? That's what makeup is for. That's what special effects and editing is for. I was kind of surprised, to be honest, with the Wicked movie because, like, again, I guess I've never seen anyone past the age of 36 play a teenager or a young adult before. Like, I know that Moaning Myrtle, the actress who played Moaning Myrtle in the Harry Potter movies, she was like 35 or 36 when she played that role. So I think at the time, I read some article that said she was the oldest person to ever portray a teenager on screen. But now we have like Ariana Grande, 32, Cynthia Erivo, 37, portraying college-age students, which is 18 to 21. So yeah, that's a teenager. And Fiyero, who literally looks like a 36-year-old man, which is what he is, but yet they put his ass up in there in the Shiz University uniform, just like everyone else, you know. Bowen Yang, who is another cast member, is 34, so he's my age, also playing a college student. I remember similar outcries when Margot Robbie was announced to play Barbie and Ken was announced to be played by Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling was 40 when he played Ken, like the quintessential all-American, you know, strapping young picture of male American youth. And people were trying to criticize the fact that Ryan Gosling was given the role at 40, but you can criticize and you can stay mad all you want. At the end of the day, the role still went to Ryan Gosling, and there's nothing you can do about it. Ryan Gosling is 44 now? Wow. So Barbie... Wait. Barbie came out 2 years ago, right? No, Barbie was last year, 2023. So Ryan Gosling was actually even older than 40. He was 42, 43. And Margot Robbie was like, what, 33? And people tried to complain that they were too old to play the dolls because the dolls are supposed to be in their 20s. Says who, though? Says you? Or says the director? Because the director picked 30-year-old 33-year-old Margot Robbie and 43-year-old Ryan Gosling. And if you have a problem with it, you can just not watch the movie. So yeah, keep it simple, sis. And remember that Darwin said survival of the good enough, not the fittest. Because to hell with the fittest. I mean, what really is the benefit of being the fittest? Okay, maybe you can win the gold medal at the Olympics, right? That is a prize that they reserve for truly the fittest, like the cream of the crop. But aside from that, like, what do you really gain? I mean, do the gold medalists automatically get guaranteed the best contracts? Are they guaranteed to earn the most money just because they are a gold medalist? Or is it usually based on a bunch of other factors? Like, for example, Maria Sharapova. Do you guys remember the tennis star? I feel like she's been very quiet lately, but I remember when I was growing up, people would always make fun of Maria Sharapova. I hope I'm saying her name right, because she, I guess, was infamous for not really winning that much, but yet because of her conventional attractiveness, she got a lot of brand deals. And I remember like the Canon, I think it was the Canon commercials, Canon cameras. I would always see her as their, image model spokesperson. So I saw Maria Sharapova more than the people that actually won the tennis matches back in the day. I couldn't even tell you who won if you ask me right now, because I don't follow sports like that. But I follow popular culture and I watch TV. I can tell you who appeared on my TV screen the most often. It was Maria Sharapova. So does it matter that she was not the best at tennis? Because she was still there and doing her thing and making her bag. So yeah, just a reminder, stop beating yourself up for no reason. It's literally useless. Unless you're a masochist, why would you even entertain the thought of imposter syndrome or thoughts of, I'm too old to do something, or I'm not talented enough to do something. I don't have enough experience to truly excel at this job. I mean, if you were picked for it though, and if you're there already, then that means that you already passed the test. And so what are you agonizing over at that point? Just get on with it. Like, get on with the show and do your thing, That's all I wanted to say. I think I covered everything. Thanks so much for joining me as usual.